I'm at it again, breaking down another team's finish. Today, I'll be breaking down the Washington Nationals, where I'll try and decide whether Dylan Cruz or James Wood will be the bigger superstar next year on today's action-packed episode of Locked On Fantasy Baseball.
You are Locked On Fantasy Baseball, your daily fantasy baseball podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, fantasy baseball fanatics, and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Baseball podcast, brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, we are number one source for fantasy baseball knowledge, and thank you for making us your first listen each and every day. I'm your host, Matthew Ane. You can find me on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, at Matthew_Ane. If you're watching on YouTube, please click the bell below, and I'll subscribe you to the channel and give you a notification every time we drop a new episode. Also, please leave us a 5-star rating and review on Apple or Spotify, wherever you may listen. And guys, if you want a little bit more than what we offer in this 30-minute podcast, check us out on Subtext and become a member of the Diamond Club, where, you'll be able to get all our off-season material from waiver wire rankings, redraft rankings, dynasty rankings, rookie rankings, and so much more. Check us out. You get a free 2 weeks. This episode is brought to you by Booking.com. Booking.yeah. The right stay can make you a fan of any city, even your baseball team's rival. Book today on Booking.com, the official accommodation partner of MLB. Get the Booking.com app today. And guys, we got a good one for you. I'm excited to talk about it. It's actually a really exciting team and, really exciting players at the top. And also, too, their whole farm system is pretty much exciting. So I'm excited to dig into it. Don't mind the backgrounds. I am kind of out of sorts here. I'm in Japan. So I am, as you all are sleeping, I am recording this. So my bad. But if you're in Misawa, come check me out. I'm hanging out. I'm ready to dig in and get talking some baseball. And I'm really excited, actually. So, let's talk about their season, and then we'll start breaking into the fantasy aspirations. What do I think next year's going to look for Dylan Cruz, James Wood, the most, probably tantalizing names, or better said, the most hyped up names for next year for 2025. And I think a lot is going to come into play next year. I think they're both going to be fantastic. It's just a matter of who's going to be the better pick, and also too where the value is going to be. I can't wait to see ADP on them. Let's start about the season, right? 71-91. So. Not bad. Honestly, they started out pretty good. I actually thought they were going to be pretty scary starting the first half of the year. CJ Abrams just went completely off. Team was looking rock and roll, and they were looking pretty good. They were pretty dangerous, and then they kind of fell off a cliff. And, that was the second half of the season. CJ Abrams wasn't that good. They called up the young pups of Dylan Cruz, James Wood, and, they added to the mix and kind of contributed. But you saw the rookie struggles, even though some of the underlying stats actually said otherwise versus what you saw out on the field and in the box scores. So, we're going to break them down, but I think the team as a whole, took a serious step forward. So I think next year is going to be even better. The young talent is coming, and, with another year under their belt, or at least a half a year, and, first full season without all the movement, right? Because you got to remember too, they're real people, and, they climb levels pretty fast, and then they're going to different cities, different towns, and et cetera, and they're able to get comfortable. I think now a full off season in Washington, a full year of just kind of training and preparing to be in that big league mindset is going to change things for this whole team. And it's kind of like a nice, segue into the James Wood, Dylan Cruz kind of conversation, right? I'm going to talk about Dylan Cruz first, right? I think he's more of the pulverizing name because of how fast he was kind of pushed through the system, essentially, right? James Wood has been around for a bit. He's been with the team since he's 18, whereas Dylan Cruz was drafted in the 2023 draft as the number 2 pick overall. They actually were pretty patient, unlike, the Rangers, who called up Wyatt Langford pretty fast. And, they let him go through the whole progression of a full spring training where he went from AA to AAA. He kind of rocked and rolled. And even into his first, kind of lick after he was drafted in 23, he went from rook ball to A to AA. And then this year, AA to AAA. And, had a pretty good minor league season, right? You look at it, he had 397 at-bats. He had 60 runs, 21 doubles, 6 triples, 13 bombs, 68 ribs, 25 stolen bases, 36 walks and 92 strikeouts, batted about 270. The kid actually has a great batting profile. I think he has a good eye. I don't think the numbers really show off that, in my opinion. I think there's going to be better days to come with that. And even what he did during the season, I don't think was like the box score didn't relate what he was really doing. So like you look at his stats on the year of like, well, his 119 at bats, truthfully, 12 runs, 5 doubles, a triple, 3 bombs, 8 ribs, 12 stolen bases, you know, 11 walks to 26 strikeouts, which actually isn't that bad, but he batted about 218. He had an OBP of, 288, a slug of 353, and an OPS of 641. Kind of like on the miss side, especially that batting average of womp womp, you know what I'm saying? But we kind of let's kind of just go off of on a couple different things. Let's talk about the underlying stats of what he did in the bigs, and then we'll talk about like him as a whole of his evaluation as a prospect, right? And you know, let's look at it, right? So when he came up, he had a fantastic kind of start, right? Like, and I wouldn't say fantastic. He had a good start for a rookie, and I'm going to compare him to, funny enough, Corbin Carroll's rookie season in the bigs when he got that cup of coffee, right? So like Dylan Cruz had an xWOB of 325. He had an X batting average of 256, which obviously is about 40 points better than 211. So I like that. 45 points actually, but slug of 424, an average exit velocity about 89 miles an hour. Barrel could have been better at a 6.4, but his hard hit percentage, so how often he made hard contact, was at 44.7% at the time, which was pretty nice. Launch angle really wasn't really getting there, but I think that'll change in the new season. Bat speed was pretty decent, squared up pretty nicely. Didn't really chase, didn't really whiff, didn't really strike out, which was pretty great. And the walks could be a smidge bit better, but still on the better side of things. But his sprint speed was super elite, probably one of the faster guys in the MLB. If he would have played a full season, 93 percentile. And then you go and you look at like his rookie league profile, right? Like, so what was his evaluation as a prospect? So hit tool, 40 out of 45. Game power, 45 out of 60. Raw power, 60 out of 60. Speed, 60 out of 60, which we saw 93 percentile. And nobody cares about fielding anything else because it's fantasy baseball, right? Unless you're going to, get points or get a cash for double and triple plays or anything of the sort. Like ain't gonna do it for you long. Sorry, nice Japanese beer. It's pretty good. So him as a whole, I think is going to be really fantastic next year. I think he's going to be costly though. That's the thing. Him and James Wood are going to cost you a pretty penny, especially after people sit back. They kind of calm down over the overreactions of what did he do last year for you if you were an owner versus the non-owners who kind of just do a little bit of homework and kind of see, is he going to be worth where that ADP is going to be? And I think the ADP is going to be like, for both of them, a top 100 pick. And quite honestly, it might even be like a top 70, top 60 pick. And I don't think Dylan Cruz is going to be a top 60 pick. I think he's going to be a top 100 pick, probably closer to like 85 to 90, 95 range, truthfully. I think James Wood is going to be the higher drafted one, and we'll get into him in a minute. But Dylan Cruz, I think, is going to be like going to be the guy that I'm maybe leaning one because of the value, but two, I also think the upside is going to be nice. I think it's going to be comparable, and I think he's going to be just the cheaper discount in comparison to the two, but they're both going to be absolutely awesome. But here's the thing: this is a segue into James Wood, right? Actually, hold on, let me take a step back. I'll do it at the end. End of James Wood take, and I'll compare both of them and kind of go from there. Now let's look at James Wood. Right. James Wood, another great prospect, right? We'll go over like his rookie numbers and everything else, follow the same suit. And then I'll compare a couple of guys that are in comparison. So James Wood, on the other hand, he had statistically like a little bit longer. Obviously, he got called up, quite early into the season, like right after All-Star break. He had about 295 at bats, 43 runs, 13 doubles, 4 triples, 9 bombs, 41 ribs, 8 stolen bases. 14 stolen bases, 41 ribs. 39 walks, 97 strikeouts, bat about 264, which actually is a lot better than I would have thought because I was an owner this year. 354 OBP, a slug of 427, and an OPS of 781. So like the stat line isn't atrocious, but it was not like consistent. He had like a couple good weeks that really like stuck out, and he was like a serious contributor. Other than that, it was kind of like mid, and like kind of like not really doing it. Like you'd be like, oh wow, he did today, and then like, oh wow, he didn't do it today, and like it was like an ups and downs, and whatever. But you look at like the advanced stats on him, and you're just like, okay, I have some exciting prospects for him. I think he's going to cost probably more like a top 40 pick, and possibly even top 30. He might be a third round pick next year. Truthfully, he's going to have that Ellie De La Cruz feel. And when I tell you about these underlying stats, You'll understand why I'm saying it, right? So his ex-WOBA was a 351. His ex-batting average was a 271. The slug was a 444. The ex-slug. Average exit velocity was 92.8 miles per hour. The barrel percentage was 10.6%. Hard hit percentage, which is how often he hit the ball hard, 52%. Okay. Launch angle could do a little work, but that's just adjusting the swing just a hair. And the launch angle is going to be significant. He's been a great hitter in those regards for a while in the minors. So I think he'll make that adjustment. Bat speed was fantastic at 73.9. Didn't really chase, but he did whiff a lot and did strike out, but he also walked at a pretty good rip. So I'm going to say, like, James Wood has that serious potential to have that breakout, take that step forward to be super elite. And not saying Dylan Cruz doesn't, but like we saw it on the underlying stats. And on top of that, too, let's talk about his sprint speed, too, 85th percentile. Not like that crazy elite like Dylan Cruz, but still fast as hell. So I think he's going to be a serious contributor. He's a big boy, 6'7", 234 pounds. Everything screams it. 22 years old. This kid's going to be serious. And then we talk about like his minor league profile, too. And, you got to look at it like this, right? 55 out of 80 game power, 70 out of 80 raw power, 60 out of 50 speed. Kid's going to be fantastic. Coming up next, I'm going to get a little bit more deeper into it and whatnot. But, I kind of just like, there's a lot to get just like kind of take in. And I'm not even done bringing in the whole experience between two and who I'm going to like better in 2024. Stick around, 2025. Stick around for that. Hey, NFL fans, you can start this season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view the play-by-play, and so much more on the same page as you can make your bets. Speaking of which, I might as well help you out in that and kind of give you a little bit of place to start, giving you that little spark for that same game, hunch, right? Get you a little going, right? Bet against the Giants. I know this last week it didn't pan out, but they're not going to win a lot of games. Bet against Daniel Jones. Bet against everybody on that team except for Malik Neighbors. Okay? Pick the lower stats, lower touchdowns, all the unders, all that stuff, and I promise it's going to pan out. Them and essentially the Jets too. Those are the two teams I'm truly just betting against all season long. I'm not a New York hater. I'm a New Yorker myself, wearing the Yankee hat. And I'm a Giant fan. But you know what? You got to play the odds. You got to win some money. And you'll get started today with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. So might as well make that bet count by placing those bets against those teams. That's FanDuel.com. Check it out. Use that promo code. Game Time has this new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for the favorite live events even easier. Game Time Picks filter out the fluff to show you all the incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste your time searching through the thousands of tickets. With Game Time Picks, curation makes it easier for you to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. Game Time has a plethora of great features as well as such their all-in-one pricing. Toggle through this feature and show total upfront costs with no surprise fees at checkout. Seat view, so you get a panoramic view of exactly where you're going to be sitting, so you're making sure you're not sitting behind that pole. Lowest price guaranteed on Game Time, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. And the Game Time ticket coverage is absolutely phenomenal. Your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app and create an account and use the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time, baby. Are you watching Fox Sports and ESPN on your TV all day? Have you had to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 streaming channel program for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all that screaming. Locked On Sports today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube or free on the Amazon Fire TV channel app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Introducing the Locked On Fantasy Baseball Podcast, Diamond Club on Subtext, your ultimate fantasy baseball companion. Rely on our dynamic content. Get real-time alerts right to your phone, including waiver wire rankings. I apologize, I just haven't memorized. including redraft rankings, dynasty rankings, sleepers, breakout busts, injury actions, and a whole lot more. Stay ahead of your fantasy leagues by joining the Diamond Club on Subtext, where your path to victory begins, and by joining, get a free 2 weeks. So check it out. Links in the description below. And sorry, sometimes it's just ingrained. I got to get used to off-season mode. It's crazy. We're here. We're already talking about 2025. I'm blown away. So I know I spent a lot of time talking about these two. I'm going to bring it home now and kind of just talk. So we all know Corbin Carroll, right? Corbin Carroll had a fantastic full season when he had his first full season, right? Got that cup of coffee. His underlying stats were so ugly. Honestly, I was just like, okay, you kind of got to buy the fantastic prospect pedigree and not look at the underlying stats or not look what he did in his rookie year with 104 at bats. And you compare him to the two guys that we were talking about before, right? Dylan Cruz and James Wood. And let's talk about real quick. Corbin Carroll, ex-WOBA of 283, an ex-batting average of 221, ex-slug of 359, average exit velocity of 85.8, barreled about 5.5% of the time, hard hit percentage about 32% of the time, struck out and whiffed like crazy. Comes out in 2023 and just, rookie of the year, and honestly could have even made a run for MVP. Like, kid was awesome. Kudos. This is the ceiling for the two of them, and I think that honestly, they're two different players. I think Dylan Cruz is more similar to the Corbin Carroll effect, right? Where like they're the same kind of profile, right? It's really fast guys, has power under their belt, but is going to be a very well-rounded player, but not have the super power upside like Ellie De La Cruz or in this case James Wood, where I think James Wood is more on the Ellie side, right? Not going to hit you 300, but will hit about 250 to 270, have 40 home runs and probably 30 to 40 stolen bases easy, right? So like they're both running in the right direction. Who's going to be more pricey? Obviously, it's going to be James Wood. You look at exactly what he did in the underlying stats. Kid is just going to be way more valuable. Honestly, it's just it is what it is. So just get ready to pay for it. It's going to be worth it. Dylan Cruz, I think, is going to be the value that one I'm probably going to be taking in a lot of drafts because of the value. But ultimately, like, you can't go wrong with either one. They're going to be an exciting team, and I think the counting stats are going to follow suit because the team itself is going to get better. But I want to move on. I want to talk about anybody else but these two at this point before we have to hit another break. And we're going to talk about CJ Abrams. I called him a bust, and I kind of got to eat a little crow, but at the same time, I don't have to eat too much, right? So, like, CJ Abrams had a pretty good start to the season versus how it ended. And total season numbers were pretty darn good. 541 at bats, 79 runs, 29 doubles, 6 triples, 20 bombs, 65 ribs, 31 stolen bases, batted 246 on the season, 314 OBP, slug of 433, an OPS of 747. Now, you look at it and, some things are good, some things are bad. The batting average, I think, was not where anybody thought it was going to be. Power, honestly, was trending in a lot different than how it finished, funny enough. And just a very surprising finish, right? So, like, you look at first half versus second half split, and you're like, okay, he fell off a cliff in the second half. So first half, right, 354 at bats, 59 runs, 21 doubles, 6 triples, and 15 home runs. He had a 48 ribs, 15 stolen bases, and he was batting 268. Great half. I was literally like, oh my God, I was so wrong. I was kicking myself. But like the second half, though, is the part where I was like, I think I might have hit the nail on the head here. It was kind of a bust, especially for what we had to pay, especially the second half. 187 at bats, 20 runs, 8 doubles, no triples, 5 bombs in total, 17 ribs, 16 stolen bases, and batted 203. Now, granted, too, he was dealing with some injuries, too. So, don't let me take that away. But at the same time, still, you look at it, he still managed to get 500 bats in total in the season. So, he still played pretty much a full season. I think he missed maybe 2-3 weeks, which could have messed up with his rhythm. But at the same time, he really did fall off a cliff. I think next year is going to be bright. I think there's going to be a discount double check on Abrams. So I'm all about drafting him next year. I just thought the price was a little too high. That first half was fantastic. You would have sold high on him in that first half. You would have gotten a haul. So, you live and you learn. Abrams, I think, is going to be a fantastic player moving forward. Between those three dudes, it's just going to be really fun to have. Abrams gets on base. I think he's going to have a better season with batting average and just on base percentage in total. in 2025. This team is going to be so dangerous next couple years. I'm not saying next year, but next couple years, and they're going to be fighting for that division alongside the Phillies and Mets and Braves. It's going to be really fun to watch the NL East. It's going to be a great time. So yeah, but coming up next, I'm going to be talking about the other half of this. So we got Luis Garcia Jr. coming up. How am I approaching him? Where I think I'm going to have him at least. Jacob Young, Mackenzie Gore, Kyle Finnegan, and some prospects coming up next, right after this. Explore those U.S. cities you've always secretly wanted to learn about, and even your baseball team's rival city. Maybe it's time to taste test the baseball's competition stadium cuisine. Luckily, on Booking.com, you can find the stadium to stay just right for you, right? With Booking.com's wide variety of choices across the U.S., you can go incognito at your baseball's rival city. That's right, you can stay and can make you a fan of any U.S. city, even your baseball rivals. Booking.com, booking.yeah. All right, we're in this latter half, and honestly, I didn't think I was going to spend about like 18 minutes talking about Dylan Cruz and James Wood, but they're the most important players on that team. But there is other pieces to this, right? So like Luis Garcia Jr., right? You look at him, and he actually had a little bit of fantasy value. I think more in the second half for me, at least. But he was a good waiver wire pickup. Second base eligibility, shortstop as well. And he put together a decent season. Not like, oh my God, knock your socks off, but he was good. He's only 24 years old, but he's been in the bigs for a bit, for about 4 years, going on 5 actually, and really has never made like a serious impact. But 24 is those prime years, and I feel like he did turn a corner just a hair, but not enough to make me say, okay, like this kid's gonna be a top 10 second baseman next year. Season numbers are pretty good: 500 at bats, 58 runs, 25 doubles, triple, 18 bombs, 70 ribs, 22 stolen bases. Bet about 282, OBP of 318, a slug of 444, OPS of 762. Now I'm gonna bring up the splits here in about a second once I can get it loaded. And man, this internet is better in in Japan than in my own house. But you look at the first half, and the kid had 11 home runs through 306 at bats, and was batting about 281. And then you look at the second half, slowed down just a hair, but the batting average got better at 284. Still had 7 home runs, but the ribs and stolen bases, the ribs went down significantly, about half, to about 20 less, 25 ribs, 294 at bats. And obviously didn't have as many at bats, but I would have thought the ribs would have been a little bit better. But you saw the decline of CJ Abrams. You saw the struggles of like Wood and Cruz and how they were a little inconsistent. So you can see how the ribby numbers kind of went down a little bit. But I think he's going to have some decent upside for next year. Maybe like a top 15, top 18 kind of like second baseman for me, where like he might be the sneaky one that like we're picking at the end of our drafts because he's not going to be like super valuable and he's not going to have a high price tag. But he might be a lottery scratcher that we're talking about that could possibly have some nice value next year. I think could take a step forward. I mean, we forget like the kid is 24. Yes, he's been in the league for quite some time, but he could take that step forward. These are the prime years: 24, 25, 26. Like we could see a breakout like this, and all that young talent around him can really just like drive up. Let alone just the counting that stats, right? Runs and ribs. Boom. He already steals bases. He gets me 22 next year through 500 at bats. I'm gonna be happy, especially if like the runs and ribs step up, and we're talking like 80 and 80. Like he wasn't far off, right? So like he had 58 runs and 70 ribs. Like, yeah, like it's totally obtainable to go 80 for him, if not more. So that and 18 home runs, like I think the 20 is in the realm of possibilities with like 25 stolen bases, batting at 282 with more runs and ribs. There is some value. You look at the second base position and you're just like, this is where you put him into consideration. Okay, I missed out on second, but there is my guy, Luis Garcia Jr. that's going to be like, okay, cool. I can pick him up. I didn't really miss out on the position. He's going to be pretty good for me. So, second base is kind of like finicky. I got to go through the rankings. He might end up higher, just based off of that. So I like Garcia Jr. a lot for next year. It's just a matter of where the value is going to take us, essentially. Now, I'm going to skip somebody because I just don't think they're fantasy relevant too much. And I'm going to move right on to Mackenzie Gore. Mackenzie Gore, I think, is somebody that we need to talk about. He's always been like a guilty pleasure for me because I just love the prospect pedigree, especially when he was on SD, right? Like San Diego. But when he came over here, kind of like, I was like, meh, middling, and, hasn't really had an ERA under 4 until the season, and pitched a full season this year, 32 games. It's 166 innings pitched. He had about 181 strikeouts. He had, an ERA of 3.90 and a WHIP of 141. The WHIP is kind of ugly, but I think he's turning a corner. He's doing things that, like, I just think are a little bit better for him, and I just think he's taking steps in the right direction. He's still very young. We're talking about a dude that's 25 years old. Pitchers get better as they get older, funny enough. So, like, the closer he gets, to 30, the better, more I'm probably going to like him. And I think the more he's going to mature, it's a chess match up there on that mound. So I think that, Mackenzie Gore is going to be taking a step forward. We also got to look at the underlying stats, so things that kind of came into play, that why he wasn't, able to really have that elite season was there was just no movement on his pitches. Fastball didn't have movement. Breaking ball didn't have movement. Off-speed pitches really didn't have the movement. Hopefully he can correct that. But the fastball velocity was sitting at 96 miles per hour. It wasn't really giving up hard contact. The average exit velocity was at 88 miles an hour. He wasn't getting guys to chase as much, but he was creating whiffs and Ks, which was fantastic. Wasn't allowing guys to barrel up. But hard hit was like right under, on Baseball Savant being red at like 38%. What I'd like to see is a little bit more ground ball production. That'll help kind of alleviate some of the issues. Now, if he can get that movement back up on those pitches, I think he's going to be super elite. He never really had the true movement, but I think that's something that, is easily teachable. It's just a grip, a little bit of an adjustment. I think that this kid can seriously take that step forward and be that guy. So Mackenzie Gore, I think, is going to take that step forward, I think, in 2025 and, be a valuable pitcher. He's going to be a great scratcher for next year. And it's a name that's popular. It's going to come more at a premium than I'd like, but at the same time, a premium for your 6 pitcher isn't that bad, but just would have rather had him at a 7. But I think Mackenzie Gore is going to be a fair start for next year. Guys, I had a few more names, but at the same time, I really just not inspired. I'll talk about them down the line. I am, there's plenty of off season to cover some of these guys. So I'm going to call it a day. Guys, so let's put it this way. This team has a lot of upside coming our way. I'm truly excited about it, especially the 2 guys at the top, James Wood and Dylan Cruz. So check it out. Guys, please, thank you so much for being here with me and bearing with, the not normal situation. But, I know you guys love us so much. When you're done, check out our boy Sully at Locked On MLB. He's fantastic, covers the league. Going to want all your playoff breakdowns, so check him out. And guys, please like, subscribe, comment, rate, review, do all those wonderful things. Help us out. We truly appreciate it. And with that being said, guys, have a great rest of your day. Dom and I are going to be coming back all week covering all these teams. So peace out.